Hey guys, I want to talk to you today about two different kinds of people. I'm not saying these are the only kinds of people in the world, but it seems like people fall into one of these two camps. In the first camp, there are people who take responsibility for their lives and get results. In the other camp, there are people who think that if they can find some kind of logical, justifiable explanation, aka an excuse, for why something is going on in their life, good or bad, if they can find an excuse for why something's wrong, if they can blame it on some other factor, external source, another person, then they think that it's okay and they're off the hook. And as long as there's someone else to blame, their work is done. If that doesn't sound crazy to you, this video is for you. I want you guys, as we're watching this video, to be reflective and to really evaluate yourself from an objective place to figure out, am I talking to you or are you over here? Because I've found that a lot of people that I work with, especially when I'm like in a leadership capacity, there are people who give me excuses for why something didn't happen, why something wasn't done to a certain standard, why something couldn't like be fulfilled on their end. And they think through their process that if they find a logical excuse or some kind of explanation as to why it didn't happen, that it's okay and their responsibility is nullified. And the biggest concern I have here is, I'm not saying that crazy things don't happen and that we don't have reasons for why we have challenges or things aren't done the way we want them to be done, but there's an attitude and a posture and a belief system that says, if I find an excuse, that's acceptable and my responsibility is no longer in question. I no longer have to participate. And I'd like to propose that if that's you and you think that way, or you believe that way, you are sabotaging your own life. And the person who's paying the highest price for it and the one who suffers the most is you. And it might not always be perceived, you might not always recognize that you're the one causing all the pain in your life, but I promise you, if excuses are legitimate in your life and you think that they actually fill gaps of explanation and understanding as to why your life is playing out the way that it is or the way that it should, you are probably the one suffering the most. So this video is not to condemn you or to accuse you. This video is to shake you up and wake you up and get you to realize that that's insane, that you cannot think and live that way and live a fulfilled life. People accept these kinds of excuses in their career choices, in their income level, in their relationships, in the health they're in their own physical health. I mean, in all kinds of areas, people find justifiable excuses to get them off the hook, to ease them into a place of comfortable denial that allows them to live unaccountable for their actions or choices. And I'd like to blow a whistle here and say that's insane. You've got to stop living and thinking that way. Any boss, any leader, any teacher will hear me and they're like, preach. That's so true. Anybody who's only ever been an employee or a follower or someone who just depends on someone else to do the hard stuff, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And I'm talking to you. And I'm not trying to make this thing like, aggressive or volatile, but it drives me nuts when I get excuses from people that I depend on, that I trust to manage a certain area of something that, affects me or that I'm responsible for. When I have people following me who don't follow through with the things they're supposed to be doing, it makes me look bad, it makes my life harder, and it makes me angry that I trusted them with something and then they failed me and then they give me an excuse thinking that somehow that makes the problem go away. All that shows me is they're only thinking about themselves, they're short-sighted, they're selfish and immature, and they don't actually care about how their actions affect other people. They just don't want to get in trouble. It's like you've got to exist for something more than that. And then to you Christians, there are Christians in life who blame God for things, or they blame Satan for things, or the church or whoever for things. It's the same problem. There are people who think that God is responsible for their fill in the blank. And I'm not saying that God isn't responsible for stuff, because he totally is. He reveals himself as our healer, as our provider, as our comforter, as our father, as our master. Like, he has all these roles that he fulfills in our lives. So I'm not saying that God doesn't bring something to the table, obviously. However, there are things that God will not do for you because you are empowered to do them yourself. And if you are capable and God expects you to manage those things and you expect him to, guess what? there's a gap in that process, and you're the one who suffers for it. You're the one who pays for it. And God is in no way coerced into trying to alleviate you from responsibility. God is very interested in powerful, responsible, mature sons and daughters who take ownership for their lives and the things that have been entrusted to them and who get results. He is an investor. He is a master, right? So he's the guy calling the shots, who's apportioning grace and favor and opportunity and gift and talent and responsibility and stewardship and influence. And he's expecting a return on his investment. And God is a wise investor. If we give him excuses instead of results, I promise you, he's not gonna like it. So all that to say, the two camps, those who get results and those who get excuses, these are not the same people. They're always in different camps. And I promise you, life is so much more rewarding and fulfilling when you're over there. Cross that line. Excuses are for losers.